You gotta show your ticker. You gotta hit show. Yep. Boom.
That is funny. Hey, everybody that's coming in on YouTube. This is the behind the scenes of episode, I don't even know, of the Blessed and Bossed Up podcast to something. I mean, at this point, it's just another episode of the Blessed and Bossed Up podcast. This is, you guys, as you are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the full thing. And then the podcast, it'll probably be broken up into 2 parts. So if you guys are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the Blessed and Bossed Up podcast everywhere that you get your podcast. If you are here with us live now, make sure that you like the video, you leave a comment so that we can see that you're here. Let me actually pull them up. This is real ghetto podcasting recording right now, but it's going to sound good, I promise. I didn't bring my extra mic. We just gonna use one.
It's gonna get what it's supposed to have gave.
Exactly. It's gonna work. Y'all will never know if the show would have just came out. It's been so many times I forget my adapter, so I'm recording right into the computer. Nobody knows. Yep. It's been plenty of times that the recording process has been very wretched. But who's gonna know?
Yes. Is the word good though?
Exactly. And it's gonna sound good. All right, so we are here with Dr. Sharla Walker. You got to send me your bio so I can read it at the beginning of the episode. Yep. This is the first time you've been on the show.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes, this is full circle for me because just a measly, 3 years ago, my friend was like, girl, listen to this podcast. And then the Lord, the Lord. So this is, and it's in studio. We're not even Zooming.
Yeah, this is in the office. Charlotte is a listener, turned client, turned friend, turned family. So she and her husband, Andre, are here visiting. So we're here hanging out. We're doing this live, and then we're going to pack it on up and have a good weekend.
Yes.
Okay? This is the only little bit of work that's going to get done. But welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Show.
I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you here. So let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about you. We'll talk about the nonprofits and things of that nature, but who is Dr.? Because we're going to put some respect on your name. Okay?
Come on, thank you.
Who is Dr. Sharla Walker?
Well, in the beginning, Genesis. No.
In the beginning.
So I'm a lot of things. I wear a lot of different hats. God has really afforded me the opportunity just to live a life that I never even thought that I could. So I'm a nurse practitioner, got my doctorate after I told God at 17 I was going to be a doctor. I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. And he was like, nah, but you still, he still honored my doctor by 30. That was my thing. And then he was like, you 30 and you a doctor now. So now what? And I was like, oh, look what you had did. But I do a lot of things. I'm a wife, I'm an auntie, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I have my parents, we're both military, so we moved around a lot. And so it was great because I got exposed to a lot, but also trying to really find that confidence in who I am as a person and not necessarily pick up, move. Now you are from here and now you are from there. And so it's just been a really, really great journey.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your faith journey specifically. There's so many places we can go. We can talk about your accomplishments. We can talk about, the brand. We can talk about what you've been able to accomplish in nonprofits. But let's just start with the faith part. So what's the good way I can ask this? How did you get started with building your relationship with
God?
Mm-hmm.
It really started my serious relationship. So my grandmother, everybody, got a praying grandmother. Everybody got that. Mm-hmm. But I always knew of God, but my personal relationship with him really started when I was in undergrad. So I met my husband the summer before I started college. And just throughout my journey in nursing school, I got more and more, God just exposed himself to me more and more. Mm-hmm. So one day, I'll never forget, I worked full time and was also in school. And I had to work overnight shift, had this psych exam that I was not ready for. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, God, I'm just going to show up a couple hours early and help. Mm-hmm. Because in nursing school, a 76 is failing. So we be pressed. And so I'm sitting there in the classroom. Class don't start till 6. It's 4:00. Nobody's there. And I'm like, God, I just still don't feel ready. Like, I need your help. And all the electricity in the building went out. And the exam got pushed back to the next week. And I said, I ain't know it was that. I mean, I'm going to take it. Right. I'm going to take it. So even in those small instances, I was able to really learn who God was. And it intrigued me to spend more time with him. Mm-hmm. But I really didn't understand how to get past that surface level. Mm-hmm. Then we messed around and got married. Child. Marriage will make you run to the Father like, hey, excuse me, sir. Mm-hmm. And so that really was the catalyst into me really getting serious, as you say, saved, because mm-hmm. I know that I needed God to sustain me in this relationship. Like, this ain't about the work. Like, I tell people the realest prayer I ever uttered was, God, like, I'm about to send you this man back in a wooden box. Help us today. Mm-hmm. And what I found out though was there was a level of submission. I submitted my marriage to him and thought that I was going to help God help him. But God really was like, no, mirror, mm-hmm. you got an attitude problem. Mm-hmm. You be fussing him out. Mm-hmm. God told me that I was so loud in Andre's ear that Andre couldn't even hear him. And so after I was like, but I came to you because he was cutting up. Like, yeah, why?
I didn't come here to talk about.
Well, yeah, why? Forget that's enough about me. But in that, God really changed my life, and it literally was like November, and we had planned to move to Florida. I always wanted to move to Florida. We were living in St. Louis. I'm not from St. Louis, though. I like to be very clear. But we were living in St. Louis, and I was looking, because at this point now I'm in my master's program, and I'm looking to move in like 2 years. And so I went in, you go on the job boards, they'll start sending you the stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and then I got a message right back, and they were like, hey, they want to interview you for a NICU position. And I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, we had a house, like there was just so much. And literally from November, by that following April, we lived in Florida. God was like, sell the house on Craigslist. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? Andre didn't believe it was going to work. Andre was like, oh, Craigslist. Ain't nobody going to pay us? Because we just did like a huge kitchen renovation. Like, we were just everything that we were doing, God was telling me to do. But when it came down to it, I put that thing on Craigslist, and they came in and was like, we'll pay you what you want. Mm-hmm. And it blew my mind, but then it ultimately ended up blowing his mind. And it brought him closer to God. So like times where he fully expected for me to go off on him, and God gave me that spirit of hush, girl, hush. Uh-huh. He'll even tell you like, I thought I was going to get cussed out, and then you didn't cuss me out. Mm-hmm. And so those little changes drew him closer to God. And God really, ever since then, we've been rocking, honey. Once he moved me across the country, God had me flued out. Mm-hmm. I've been doing anything he tell me to do because I know I can't lose with him on my side. Yeah. And so it's just been thing after thing after thing of God revealing himself and me chasing after him.
I'm going to rewind for a second because I'm trying to figure out where this boldness or this obedience came from, because you said you had a praying grandmother. You said that you sought God, something small, mm-hmm. which was not small, but a situation where it was the test that you were having that lecture. Mm-hmm. But how did that foundation for that relationship with him come about to where you were going to him on behalf of your marriage and going to him on behalf of the move to Florida and all of that?
Oh, I got to the end of myself. I was like, look, I'm 25, and clearly I've been doing this myself for 25 years, mm-hmm. and I suck at it. And I'm one of those people, if I'm going to commit to doing something, I'm going to all the way commit. And even too, knowing that I wanted to do something different, because my husband's parents got divorced. My parents are still married, but it's not the best circumstances. And so I wanted something that looked different. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I could not allow this to continue, but also knew that if I wanted something different, I had to be willing to do something different, mm-hmm. drastically. I mean, I went from like nuck if you buck to praise is what I do in like a matter of like a very short period of time. It seemed very accelerated. Like I was like, okay, no more doing this, no more cussing, no more doing that. It just was stuff that I knew that I wanted to hear from God. I got very intentional about my quiet time. Like Andre was like, are you like, you want to watch TV? I'm like, because I had an attitude with him. Mind you, at the time I didn't like him. I was like, I'm spending time with God.
No, I'm not watching your sinful television. I'm going to sit before the Lord.
I'll let you know when I'm finished. But I needed that time though. Like I really did need that time. And eventually, once he saw the benefit and the change in my posture and my behavior, it wasn't something that he wasn't mad at it. He was just like, oh, okay, it's your quiet time. Let me know when you're done. But it really was me saying like, God, I'm gonna lose it, right? Because on the outside, everything looked great. I had a degree. I was working in my dream job in the NICU. I had friends. Our family lived close. I had a husband. We were well off, and I was miserable. Like I had no joy. I had no peace, and it was just this up and down roller coaster. And I was like, I cannot do this. Like, we off that. Like, I'm not going to live my life this way. But I know in order to do that, I have to do something that I've never seen done before. Yeah. And so even in terms of like, the relationship that my grandmother had with Christ, mine looked very different. And even like my grandfather, like, there was stuff, traditions and religious traditions and all this work that I had to kind of get through to get my own relationship with God. But it was those things like him showing up in my psych test, like, and all of those little things that it made it easier when I did the big commit for me just to commit and ride out.
So I want to pull out, what was the practical things that you did when you got to the end of yourself and you knew that you didn't have the peace, and you knew that you knew who to go to for it, but you had to get a depth to your relationship that you didn't have before. What was step one to going deeper with that?
I watched The War Room. I didn't know what else to do. I watched War Room because, a lot of times we'll tell people when they're ready to commit their lives to Christ, we'll tell you what you need to do, and there's no like flat out instruction manual. Yeah. And so the only Bible I had was the King James, that I endearingly call King Jimmy, was a King James version of the Bible. I was getting frustrated because I did not understand the these, the thous, the thus, and all of that. It was making it hard for me to digest it. And so I'm a student. Like, I am a career student. I'm a career student. And I was like, there's got to be another way for me to understand this in a way that makes sense. So I ended up watching War Room. Me and my husband actually watched it together. And I think that was New Year's Eve. That's what we did. So every New Year's Eve, we was watching War Room, and we was watching Passion of the Christ every Resurrection Sunday. But I watched War Room, and then I found Priscilla Shire's book, Fervent. Yeah. That was the key. It allowed me the opportunity to almost, because she lines out these 10 things, like these 10 ways that the enemy is coming after your life. And so I needed someone to basically say, sis, sit down. This is the game that he's playing. That's all it takes for me. It's like, I ain't about to be played. So I read that book and really was able to incorporate things from there. Then went to my Gigi house and was trying to explain to her, like, girl, I can't read this. Like, I can't read this. So we were doing Bible studies together because my grandmother was a Bible study teacher, but she loves us all individually. And she never, like, you come on Sunday, it's praise and worship and like all of that. But she was not forcing us to sit down and she wanted us to have this relationship for ourselves. And so God is so strategic that my grandmother lived at the same place for my whole life. Okay, 1925 Utah Street, apartment A, my whole life. Right when this happened, something happened with her apartment. She lived in the city of St. Louis. It was kind of messy, and it was no longer safe for her to be there. So we moved her to the county. She was 10 minutes from us. So I got all of this one-on-one Bible, like straight up Bible teaching time. I got breakfast. Okay. She fed me spit this mother potatoes, child. And so we would literally spend the day at her house. And again, it didn't feel like work. It felt like love. Like we would come in, we would talk. I would ask my questions. She would teach me. I would just bring my change of work clothes because I worked that night, shower, we do Bible study, she'd feed me, I would go to sleep, and her and Andre would watch movies the rest of the day. Like, so it was that time. And me finding more tools after that. I read the Resolution for Women. Like, I just kept digging and finding resources. It was going to have to make sense to me. I refused to, was it Jacob that said, I'm not going to let go till you bless me.
Yeah.
Something in here is going to have to hit for me because the way my life is unacceptable.
Yeah. I love that. It's the relentless pursuit of God.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of times we somehow fault God for our lack of understanding of the word and relinquish our responsibility to study it so that we understand it.
Yeah.
And so just like in school, the teachers teach you they break it down in the syllabus and give you assignments or whatever, but you have to study. You have to learn the material for yourself. You have to take initiative and take ownership on understanding what it is that you're seeking out to learn more about. And so I think I love that you said that because it's so similar to my story as well. Like, I wish I sat down with my grandmother. I didn't, but I went to go figure it out. Buying Bible studies off Amazon. Like, okay, this is breaking down Jeremiah. So she says, this is the scripture. What are the 3 points? Or what? You know how Bible studies go. But I'm sitting there like, okay, so this is this. This is that. I'm not understanding this Bible. Let me get me a study Bible that breaks it down. So I'm going to read the text. Then I'm going to read this in the bottom. Then I'm going to highlight these words I don't know. I'm going to go to the back to figure out what this word means. Then I'm going to go to the other places this word shows up at so that I can understand the totality of what this is so that I can actually apply it to my life. And that's the work. And I think a lot of times we use the scripture, faith without works is dead. And so people try to apply whatever it is they want to do as the work. But I believe that a huge part of the work in that scripture is the work to making sure that we understand the word enough to apply it to our life.
Just like with school, like if it's on the test, you're still responsible for it, whether or not you came to the teacher and let him know that you understood the content or not. You're still going to be tested and graded on this. And so even with that, the two things that I really found were really critical were my authenticity with God. Like, I felt like I'm very silly. Like, I like to be very lighthearted. I'm about my business when I'm about my business. Especially when I'm at work, I was an ICU nurse. So like we could go from ha 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 to doing chest compressions. So I have that, but it was like surface level, almost like I felt like everybody expected me to be happy all the time. Not really, like if I told somebody I was struggling, girl, what you struggling for? Like, you got a husband and a house and then this, I ain't got no kids. Yeah, that's great, but there's something still missing. And for me to be able to identify that there was something that was still missing, and then learning that God was the void to fill that, I will never, look, the song said, I won't go back. I will never allow myself to get back in that position ever again, right? Like, that's why we see people who have millions of dollars in the bank committing suicide, because there's more to life than just that outward success. There's so much more. It's so much more. So the authenticity and the devotion, like I was authentic and I was going to ride or die for the Lord. But hopefully he didn't tell me I have to die, because Paul and them, And even with that, like we have resources. We have the amount of resources that we have as believers today, I feel like has made us lazy and complacent in our faith. Like, none of us had to hop on a ship, go across to get to the nations. We can go live right now and people all over the world can hear us. We have access to things like Amazon and Bible studies and all of that. And so to me, there's no excuse. We go, self-care and grace, and that's cute, but there's no excuse for us not being in the relationship that we want with God. And so it's very similar to us having like a marriage, like we're literally his bride, the church. And so the same way that I can anticipate the needs of my husband, the same way that I can tell when something is off with us, that same relationship, I needed that with God. And so through that, because it wasn't easy. There were times it felt awkward, times I felt like I didn't get it right, wasn't quite sure if I was understanding. It wasn't until about 3 years in that I realized the book of Job was not Job. Like, they were just really, like, I told my dad, he was like, don't tell nobody else that. But, like, that's not true. I was like, I really thought his name was Job the whole time. Right? Like, so there are moments where it feels very awkward, but then God would remind me, like, one day, I will never forget this day. One of my good friends, she was struggling. Like, she took her nursing boards and didn't pass a couple times. And she was like, Charlotte, can you please, like, tutor me? But I was like, no, because I'm going to feel responsible. Like, just not confident in the gift and the skills. And so God finally put on my heart to do it. And she was doing this thing where she was in this group where they were praying 24 hours a day. So everybody took an hour and they had to pray on that hour. And Andre was working night shift, and I can't remember what we got into it about, but he had made me mad, and God had told me to hush, and I was upset. Mm-hmm. So I'm like distracted. So we were getting ready to start studying. Her alarm went off. She's like, you care if we, pause to pray? So she prayed, and let me tell y'all, my friend, her name Kelsiera. Kelsiera is a prayer warrior. Okay, she's from Memphis. She's country as all get out. That's my boo. And so she started praying, and then she was like, "You gonna pray too?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm gonna pray." And God had told me to pray for Andre, and I was like, "Did you not?" I'm gonna do it though. Mm-hmm. And so it literally, as soon as we got off the phone, or as soon as we got done praying, my phone rings, and it's Andre, and he called to apologize. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that was so fast. Like, my mind be blown. Yeah. Not that I was even expecting him to call me, because it wasn't a manipulatory thing. Yeah. My prayer was that he's driving overnight in the city of St. Louis. It's not a safe place. And I don't want to allow my flesh to keep me from covering him. Yeah. Right? Like, if he never came back home, whatever now I don't even know what it was. Whatever we were arguing about, it had no significance. Mm-hmm. But for me to obey the Holy Spirit, I hear it, did not want to do it, did it anyway. And for me to immediately see the fruit of that, mm-hmm. I was sold. I was like, you know what? There's something to this. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, Kelsiera, like, that is bananas. Yeah. It was bananas to me, but God was like, girl, I got you.
Light work.
Yeah, I got you, girl. And so even in that, me learning to be quiet when God says be quiet, mm-hmm. Because he can say things to my husband that I could never say. Mm-hmm. He could reach. It's like taking your iPhone to Samsung and being like, fix this. Like, that's me trying to change somebody else. Yeah. Like, you're going to do more damage to the phone, and you're going to avoid your warranty and your insurance and all of those things. And so I had to really take myself back to God, because he made me, and then really be intentional about lifting my husband up to him as well, because mm-hmm. I clearly am not good at this. Mm-hmm. It's not, I was out of position. It's not my job to change him.
That's good. So I want to go back to nursing for a second, mm-hmm. because up until this point, from what you shared, you were growing your relationship with God, and you're also growing as a nursing professional. It's run parallel.
Yes.
Up until this point. What was that point where you realized that, okay, I need to seek God on behalf of what I'm supposed to do next in nursing?
Oh, goodness. So it actually started before. God's always had his hand. So I was working as a student nurse tech on this allergy pulmonary floor over at St. Louis Children's Hospital. Shout out the Slitch. That's my place. And the rule in nursing is like, you can't come out of nursing school and go straight into a specialty. Everybody has to work med surg first. Like, you do your year on med surg first, and then you can get into a specialty. Like general yuck. Okay. Shout out to the med surg nurses. Y'all are needed. But like, It's like adults. It's just adults. I worked as a student nurse tech on med surg for 6 months, and it was enough for me to know that it was not my ministry. Yeah. God used me in that space, but I was like, no. No. And so then I got the job at Children's, and I was on the floor. I just not just what happened. God had it to where it's right before I'm getting ready to take boards. I'm walking past the desk and the phone is ringing. Nobody's out there. I pick it up and it is the hiring recruiter lady from downstairs. And God was like, let her know you graduated. And I was like, hey, girl. Also, quick question, because she wanted to talk to our manager. I was like, quick question, though. I graduate in December. And I know that right now, because they had changed their policy to where you had to have your license before you could practice. I was like, I know I'm not taking boards till December or till February. And I know that we're not typically like hiring, graduate nurses. But I just wanted to find out, what the process was. I would really love to stay with children's and blah. And she was like, girl, where you want to go? I was like, the NICU. Oh, yeah. Let me send you an email. Like, email me, let me know, blah, blah, blah. And literally, I went from working as a student nurse tech into the specialty that I wanted. I started as a NICU nurse. And so even in that, like, the way that God works is not the way that the world says that you have to work. Yeah. I don't have to work med surg for why? If I'm never going to do that again, or if that's not where I'm called to be. Like, not that I would be bad to those people. They love me on the floor, but this don't feel right. I have no business being here. And I think us really getting in tune with that really, really helped. Then as I was there, God continued to show me different things. Like, you cannot work ICU and not have a relationship with God. There were times where I know we've called parents and been like, look, like, you need to get up here because this is not looking good. And I'm in the room in a code situation and I'm the recorder. So like, everybody got a job and I'm keeping time. Like, we push this medication at this time. And I'm praying under my breath, like, God, like, please not let this baby die. Like, this is like, I'm praying. And it wasn't even, my prayer life then was like phase 1 basic. Like, please don't let this baby die. That's all I had. And we're getting ready to call the baby, like, pronounce the baby dead. And then all of a sudden, we have a heartbeat on the monitor.
Oh, wow.
Girl, good day. After that, I was like, you be out here. You be out here. So through my time, God really just conditioned me to be sensitive to him, to be sensitive. Like, everybody, they'd be like, girl, all the crazy parents love you. Like, parents who they thought were problem people, he anointed me to go in and it really was just like, what's going on? Oh, you got a 5-year-old at home and you're scared to leave your baby here? And I don't think we do enough of asking those questions, but God just allowed me to be a light there to where parents who people thought were like so difficult, they were impossible to deal with, they loved me. But it was like, because I was like, go home and take a shower and get out of here. Like, ICU psychosis is a real thing. Like, go. I'm going to take you. This is the most expensive babysitting service you going to have. I'm going to be up all night. You can call me every 3 hours when you pump, whatever you need to do. Or even if you just go home and shower and come back, getting out of this unit is going to help you. Yeah. And so God allowing me to be sensitive to that and really learn and understand. My first patient out of orientation, this mom had lost 2 babies. Randomly, come to find out her baby had a genetic, like, it was a genetic thing and it was like very rare and all of that. But she was like, I was kind of hesitant for you to be our nurse because they told me you was new. But by the end, she absolutely loved me. And so every day when I would walk in, I would just ask God to give me the knowledge, the wisdom. Like, you were in control because I don't be knowing what I don't know. And there were things that I caught, like medication errors by the doctors, things that God's like, look at that again, do this again. And so in allowing him to do that, he moved me into the next phase. So he told me when my time was coming up, he told me that I wasn't going to be a neonatal nurse practitioner, but he was going to move me to outpatient to be a pediatric nurse practitioner. And so even with that, I was trying to be hard-headed because I didn't want to go back to school. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to apply to one school then. And I did, and I got in. And I was like, oh. Because I'm never going back to school. Nursing school is hard. And then I don't want all those responsibilities, as Tommy Pickles be saying. Like, I don't want that. But God was like, but I wasn't going to be disobedient. And I was like, I'm going to apply to one school. Trying to be slick, and I got in. And I was like, we here now. So it has been I would not be in the position of my career that I am without God, because He makes me great. Like, I have the license, yes, I have the education, but God, it's His promptings and situations that, child, like even like a couple weeks ago, I had a kid come in and something was not right, and I could not put my finger on what was not right, but I knew it wasn't right, and he just came from the hospital, and I sent him back. And that may look silly, and I tell parents all the time, I don't have an ego like that. I would rather your baby be alive and people to think that I'm crazy. Tell them, I'll sign up for that.
Right.
But he ended up having some like rare blood disorder.
Wow.
And I was like, something is off. For these labs to not look like this, you're telling me this is going on. I don't know, but I don't like.
Yeah.
See you.
Yeah.
And here's some, go see the hematologist, go see gastro, and come back. And my coworker texted me and was like, girl, he had blah, 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 blah. And I said, I knew it. And he's like, he was like, when he said, when you know, you know. And in my head, I was like, that was Holy Spirit, because I don't be knowing. I'm not all knowing, but He is.
That's good. And I love how you touched on how God has intervened with you on the job. And, I even think about my experiences, like postpartum, I thought I was going to die. And I had a nurse, her name was Miss Gladys. I would never forget this lady's name. And I know she was an angel. Her name is Miss Gladys. And me and BJ both had our Bibles in like the room. So we were in like the recovery room or whatever. So we were in there. And my heart rate was up really high. I had some type of infection or something from the C-section. So it was just a lot happening. I was high off of Percocets that they made me take. I was a little salty because I'm like, I don't like to take nothing stronger than Tylenol or like some Motrin. Now, when your drugs calm down, you're going to feel it. I said, I think I'm going to be good, though. And they were like, no, you're not going to be good. Man, I never had to take Percocet after that day. I said, ma'am, I will be fine. Should not have listened to her. But yeah, so I'm high off of Percocet, and I'm just like, it was a lot happening, and they didn't know what was going on with me either. So it was like, I really thought that I was about to die. I was going through it. I just had this baby. I ain't even going to get to see him grow up. And I can't remember what she said, but she spoke so much life into me. And she saw, and I guess because she saw the Bible there, that she felt free to be able to say what she needed to say. Because Miss Gladys was not playing about me. She stayed later than her shift. She was like, yeah, I'm supposed to be off, but no, I need to stay here to make sure you're good before I go home. And like, it was just such a blessing to have her in the room. And even when I was being wheeled out a couple days later, I remember seeing her and I heard her. She was like, I'm so glad she's okay. And I heard it. I was like,
yes, shout out to Miss Gladys. Yes, Miss Gladys.
But with that being said, like, nurses and doctors are so important. How can the God-fearing nurse, even though you may not be able to overtly anoint the room, you know what I'm saying? How can God-fearing nurses allow the Holy Spirit to work through them in this profession?
So a couple things. One, I prepare before I get there. Like, I send God's Spirit, like He's everywhere, but I'm intentional about like, I'm gonna send you ahead of me. Because a lot of times, especially in the ICU, you literally could be walking into a code. So it's like you have no idea. And so really being intentional about declaring declaring the safety of your patients, declaring the safety of your coworkers, because we're a team, right? So yeah, the doctors may not be saved, but you can intercede on their behalf. And so God, open my eyes to see any dangers. God, bless my hands, God, bless my coworkers. Please, allow them to be able to do their job in a way that's going to be efficient, because these are your babies. I used to always say, like, God, these are your babies. And so I need the wisdom that you would have to give me so I can care for your babies properly. And so even something as and it wasn't this 10, 15-minute long prayer. It was just as I walk into this shift, I'm going to pray. When my babies, because I work overnights, okay? Because night shift is the right shift. Too many people on days. But even like when I would give my baths, like when you think people are not paying attention, they are. I was always pleasant. I always introduced myself to the parents. I always, as I could, allowed the parents to come in. It really, you don't have to always quote a scripture for people to know that there's something different about you. Yeah. So even if it seems inconvenient, if God would tell me to do it, I would do it. If God told me, there was a mom who was she was a drug addicted, like she was addicted to drugs. Her baby had a lot of complications, severely complicated. I still remember his baby's name because he was my baby. The same way Miss Gladys didn't play about you. Mm-hmm. We do that as nurses. Like, this is my baby. Who had my baby on day shift and his lines messed up? Like, like we get saucy. Mm-hmm. And so when I came in and I had this baby, because I would take the sickest of the sick. That was my MO. I am an ICU nurse. Please do not stick me in feeder grower land. I don't know me gusta. Like, I need to be, because I could learn. Mm-hmm. So I was still learning different, he had something called high drops. So I'm learning about different illnesses and, things that I may not have been super exposed to. And I came in the room and she was just sitting in the chair kind of quiet. And when I came in, we do bedside report. I introduced myself to her. Hey, Mom, what's your name? I'm Sharla. I'm going to be your baby's nurse tonight. I'm going to come back as soon as I finish report. Da, 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 da. And she was kind of quiet. She was like, oh, hey. Like, it was kind of like awkward. Yeah. But then when I came back in to do my assessment in my hands, I was like, girl, come on over here. Girl, change this diaper. Mm-hmm. No one had ever let her come, like, invited her. Yeah. Nobody ever, like, insisted. So nobody ever told her she couldn't. Wow. But nobody ever insisted that she come over. This your baby. Come on, girl, change this baby diaper. Like, mm-hmm. I'm not gonna let you break him. Yeah. And so she told me that it touched her because she had already felt like she had broken him. Yeah. Right? Like, she already felt responsible for his condition. And so for me to come in and not treat her like a drug addict, but treat her like his mother, because that's who she was, even though grandma had custody and all of that, for me to even give her that, she's like, oh, I knew right then. Like, I'm going to go home because he's fine. Like, he's fine. Mm-hmm. And so that relationship, the 3 or 4 months that he was there, like, I would hear her say, hey, your mama here, as I was walking past. Right? And so he ended up passing away. We ended up having to take him off life support. But this is how you know that, and this is what I'm like, God, it don't even make sense, the stuff that you allow me to be a part of. Yeah. They had a care conference. They waited for me to go out of town because I was raising. First of all, we're not going to just keep me doing experimental stuff. So if it's not good, the prognosis is not good, what are we doing? Explain it to me. Yeah. Like, somebody make it make sense to me, because he can't talk, but I can. Yeah. So they waited until I was out of town to have this care conference. But I sent one of my people, I was like, text me everything. Yeah. And so his mom was like, yes, we're going to remove care. But the way that she decided to do it, she said, wait till Charlotte gets back. Oh, wow. And then I want her to have him one more day, and then we can do it. Girl. Wow. I was like, first of all, God, like, wow. It's so overwhelming for you to even consider, like, then after it happened, so I worked that night, had him. What we do is we would take the babies to the garden, take them off the machines. And a lot of times the babies would still be alive for a period of time. And after he passed away, my friend was still working day shift and had him. She had Sharon text me and asked me if I was okay. Girl.
I know you was a wreck.
I was a mess.
Oh my gosh.
Girl, what? Like, am I okay? Are you okay? But it's things like that. It's being the hands and feet of Jesus and not just always being about that action. Yeah, you can quote scripture, but are you kind? Yeah. Are you showing patience, peace, love? I really had to position myself to say, God, nobody wakes up and is like, you know what I'm going to do? Get addicted to crack, have a baby. Nobody's doing that. Yeah. Something happened to her along the way to where now she's in this position. And even when he passed away, there was a moment where she thought he was gone and she was apologizing and sobbing to him. And I felt I'm like, I shouldn't be allowed to be here. Yeah. Like, it just felt so like, what? And so her mom was there, the baby's grandmother, But she had like brought her own little support system and all of that. And so I'll never forget, the mom's name was Stephanie. Stephanie, he had passed away, and Stephanie was just holding him. And she literally goes, I gotta pee, and like hands him to me. And I'm like, she wouldn't let her mama hold him.
Wow.
And she just puts him in my arms, and I'm like, I'm wigging out because postmortem care is not my thing. Like, I don't like postmortem.
I can't
but I literally heard God say, calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down and look. He had no tubes. He was, my baby, he would come in and he's like, give me all these tubes, these machines. He looked like he was sleeping. And God was like, you helped bring him back to me. Like, he's fine. He's fine. And so now me and my two best friends from nursing school all end up working in the same place and the same floor in the same unit. And we were all a part of his care team. Because I was like, I need people I trust to take care of my baby when I'm not here. Yeah. And so my friend Danielle goes, did y'all ever imagine, like, when we were in nursing school, that we would be having it was our first death, all of us together. Mm-hmm. And we're all just sitting here ugly crying, holding this baby. Yeah. And so even in that, just being God's hands and feet. It's not just a job. Sometimes we can get very detached because we have such a big demand on us as nurses. Yeah. But this is somebody's son, daughter. I would treat people like they're like how I would expect my family to be treated. Mm-hmm. Because according to God, we all related. Yeah. And so in that, I just learned to try to listen. Yes, people are going to be difficult, child. People try to cuss you out, okay? But you have to still be able to show patience, love, and kindness. Because when you do that, they apologize. Mm-hmm. I ain't never had to, like, really get crazy with nobody because I just keep my cool. Mm-hmm. And really try to get to the core. I don't allow my ego to get so damaged that I don't hear the hurt. Yeah. What do you need? There's usually a need somewhere that isn't being met. Mm-hmm. Even if I can't fulfill all of it, no, I can't make your baby go home. But maybe I can tell you it's okay for you to go home and eat. One mom was like, I just thought y'all would think I was a bad mom if I wasn't here all the time. And I'm like, no, girl, this is why I work nights, so you'll go, so you'll go home. Yeah. But me saying, no, girl, please go. Mm-hmm. And eat and shower, love on your other kids. We see and serve people in their most vulnerable positions of their lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so just always keeping that in the forefront of your mind. Yes, girl, the coworkers be crazy. They be trying to cut up. But then even stuff like I would give my babies their baths late night, early morning, like 3 a.m., 6 a.m., because I want y'all to smell clean when y'all parents get here. Mm-hmm. You bathe them at 8, they poop and spit all night, and it's just like, it's like I never loved you, and I loved you last night. Exactly. But I would do it with the door closed, listening to gospel music. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, don't nobody care. Mm-hmm. And one day, I hear gospel music, and I'm like, oh, what's playing that? Mm-hmm. One of my coworkers is mimicking the same thing that I'm doing. Because I would do music, singing to the babies, like we lift our hands, like making them dance. Like,
them babies are trying to sleep.
Them babies are like,
and
man,
lifting their hands in the sanctuary. Yes,
Lord, for the rest of our day. Like, you better get into it, baby.
Like, Lord, just take me back. This lady is tripping. Mom, put me back in there, please.
Send me back to the apartment. But even in that, like, my coworkers just knew that I was going to come in and be integritous. My coworkers, it sometimes got overwhelming because they would come to me for everything. I'm like, I'm not even in charge. Like, we have charge nurses. I'm not even in charge. Yeah. They just put me in charge one day. I showed up and they were like, hey, girl, you pod charge today. I was like, I didn't get trained. Like, what? Okay, so I was like, all right, God, because I got a different level of patience for kids than I do adults that are complaining about assignments. And I never wanted that. And by the next time they like asked me to do it again, and it's really a voluntold, mm-hmm. They were, I was like, I still am in charge training. They was like, girl, you trained. And so just allowing God to use you, being positive, asking people if they need help, like your coworkers, and really wanting and coming to work, coming mm-hmm. to work to serve, coming to work and serving as unto the Lord. Because if God was in this patient's room with you, You wouldn't just be charting that this man's respirations is 16. My nurses know.
Because you're speaking another language.
Yeah, you know, because you instead of counting your breaths, they be like 16 for everybody. Everybody ain't 16.
Oh, okay.
Now look,
count my breath.
Count my whole
breath.
breath.
Back in the doctor's office, did you count my breath?
Count my whole breath. So just really serving as unto the Lord, and being intentional in that. Laughing when it's time to laugh. Not just sitting there with a sour face. It wasn't that I didn't interact with people. I had plenty of friends. Like we had a good time. I'm always goofy and silly, but also if someone needed something, hey girl, I see you haven't gone down to eat. Can I feed your baby?
Yeah.
So you can go eat. Because our slogan at the hospital used to be, we do what's right for kids. I'm like, look, child, I got to do what's right for me before I can really do what's right for these kids. I got to eat. And so making sure, like, hey, girl, have you peed? Have you eaten? People used to always be like, girl, yes, I'm fed and I peed. Because to me, if I'm in charge, I have to make sure, my babies are good, but my staff needs to be good too.
Yeah.
And so just being intentional about service and servitude, because that's what we got into this. What we love people. You have to really love what you do as a nurse to do it, because school is ghetto.
So is that same service and that servant's heart that you have, is that how you got into nonprofits as well?
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
Child the Lord. So God has given me this really big knack to where if I see a problem, it bothers me. And I can see the issue, and I don't like core issues. I don't like feeling like a certain group of people are suffering and other people are prospering off of their suffering, if that makes sense.
We're Black. That makes plenty of sense.
Okay. So what had happened was, so we moved down here working as a pediatric nurse practitioner. For those who may not know, nurse practitioners work in the same, I would say we're like doctors, but we're cooler because we were nurses first. So I write scripts, I see patients, when I'm in clinic, I'm in charge. And so what I started peeping was like, yo, every time there's a new grant opportunity, y'all will switch up the initiative. And so over the time of me being there, I'm like, it's not really about service, because I worked in a community health center. So I did that purposely because I wanted to work with underprivileged people.
Yeah.
But then I'm starting to realize that this is what I call better than nothing care. And I don't settle for that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Well, there's a medical food pantry, but it's only at the office that's an hour away. So what about my patients up here? They don't need medical food pantries? What about because the grant money only covers there. So y'all it's not about really service. It's about lining your pockets, right? And so I started doing some research and found out that 60% of all hospitals are nonprofit organizations. Wow. That means that they're not paying taxes, and they're getting hospital systems.
I started the wrong.
Hospital, they are nonprofit organizations.
Wow.
And hospitals be charging.
Oh, yes.
Because what I've learned is that nonprofit organizations, I always say nonprofit don't mean no profit. There's profit being made. It's just what you do with the profits that changes.
Yeah.
So you get
the accountability over that profit.
Yes, exactly. These hospital executives. So here's what I found out. So God really showed me. There was a group of girls. I was working at our south side location. So y'all can imagine it was me and all of our cousins. And these girls would come in. They were young teens, and they were in foster care. And the other providers did not like seeing these girls. They come in, they would have attitude. Yeah. They just sauce. They was just being them. And when they would come in and see me, I would give it back. I'm like, sis, girl, don't make me snatch your edges in clinic.
Yeah.
What, Miss Sharla? Because when you really sit down and talk to these girls, one girl, she was new. And I asked her, because the people that bring them from foster care don't really know these girls. They're just transporters. So I'm sitting here trying to get a health history from a 15-year-old, which is whatever. Yeah. And so I asked her, I said, how did you end up in foster care? And she started crying. I was like, girl, you ain't got to tell me. She was like, no, nobody asks.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asks.
You labeled me as something.
Yes. How did you get here?
I had no control over.
Yes, girl. Wow. Her dad was prostituting her out for drugs. Wow. He on the run in Mexico.
Wow.
And so it just started breaking my heart. And then as we would go through like their well visits and us talking, and I'm like, okay, child, we do the sex, drugs, and rock and roll talk, like eyes, girl, yeah, like eyes open, legs shut. Don't be out here in these streets. Like, don't be doing no drugs. I'll snatch you up. I would literally tell them, I will snatch you up. If I'm out here and I see you cutting up, I'm gonna snatch you up. I'm gonna snatch you up. But then when I would ask them questions like, if they were sexually active, I'm like, girl, why are you having sex? Just like that. Mm-hmm. And the response would be, I don't know.
Yeah.
I said, girl, that's a lot. Like, you're giving away a lot of value for I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't, at least say it feels good. Something, child. I don't know is not a good answer. Right. And they would be like, what? It's not a good answer. Yeah. You're so valuable that you're giving away something for free. You don't even understand the magnitude. Yeah. And so the more and more, girl, I was talking to one girl one day. She was crying and started pulling up her eyelashes. I said, this must be really hitting her soul. Yes. And so more and more of these girls would show up. And I would like stay, like, talk to them through my lunch, this or that. And I heard God telling me I need to start a mentorship program. And I was like, shh. My lunch. Because I was doing so much at the time. Yeah. God had told me to go back to school. Mm. And so I'm like, sir.
God, you're asking a lot.
A whole lot. And then even on the job, the medical assistants looked like me, cutting up, and I would like my medical assistant, her name is Bree. Bree, the first time I really talked to her, I was in my office and the manager had said something to her and she was loud. Like she was like, yip, like giving lip back loud. Mm-hmm. And I walked over to the desk. I said, hey friend, I know I'm new here, but you're not about to be embarrassing me like this. And she said, what? We both Black. Mm-hmm. I'm the only Black provider up in here. You not about to be embarrassing me like this.
Yeah.
Come talk to me. After that, I started like mentoring her. So I'm like, I already got Bree. I'm doing this. At one point, I was having Bible study in my office during lunch. Like, God just showed up and showed out. And so I ended up starting the nonprofit because God, there's no feeling that I dislike more than me feeling like God told me to do something and I know He said it and I'm not getting it done. He's like, I feel like Holy Spirit, like, so you just gonna be
like, you can't even pray right no more. It's kind of like,
like I'm in the shower brushing, I'm like in the bathroom brushing my teeth. Like, so you gonna be disobedient? Like, hey, sir.
You know how you can feel somebody staring at you. You can feel it. That's how it is. When you know, you do something. You try to act like you're trying to do it.
Oh Lord, I
was sitting here with his head cocked to the side.
Girl, I felt like Taraji P. said, I'm a cook, I'm a clean. That's fine. And so I started this journey in nonprofits. And so started the nonprofit organization in 2019. It's called Hearts Over Habits, Inc. We're working with the local foster care company. Like, God has just come in and like showed all the way out. And when I asked God, I'm like, God, you want me to start this organization and go to school? And He told me that this was going to be a test of my faith in terms of me trusting Him with every single day. Mm-hmm. He brought me to the scripture that talks about, don't worry about tomorrow because the day has enough problems of its own. And I would literally repeat that to myself over and over and over again. Yeah. And every day, God would make a way. So if I was like being obedient in one area, but I'm like, God, look at my homework. I need to, like, I'm writing a whole thesis at this point. Yeah. And He was like I would go in and none of my patients would show up in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay. So yes. And so God really, really showed me. And then I was able to then do a grant, work a grant opportunity at the job. I started a breastfeeding program for African American mothers because we don't have access to it. And so I was able to work in that and I got to kind of see how the machine works. Mm-hmm. Like but also it was disheartening to me. It was at that time that I realized that it was really, really, something had to be done because the minute that the grant funding was over, it was like, well, who's going to pay for this? Yeah. I'm like, but they need it though. Mm-hmm. So it would happen. It was like right before the pandemic. I was like, oh, we could do telephone calls to check in with the moms because what happens, I have this whole thing planned out. Well, we don't get reimbursed for that. I was triggered. Yeah. And so the pandemic happened and they started reimbursing for telehealth visits. And so I was able to roll out this program for these moms. But then it bothered me that these organizations are making all of this money. And now, because now that I'm in the nonprofit world, I know how to look up and see how much money you make because it's public record.
Yeah.
So when I go and see that I have medical assistants who are on Medicaid, and you, Miss CEO ladies, making $567,000 a year in a pandemic,
wow,
we got a problem.
Yeah.
You can afford for these moms, like y'all can afford it. We made $41 million last year. But see, nobody else is asking the questions. Nobody else is reading the reports. I was telling everybody. I was like, sending it to my coworkers. I want y'all to see when we get told that we can't have more staff, that I can't have more than one medical assistant. And so I'm giving really crummy care to these patients because it's all about the volume and not about the level of care. Yeah. It's not, no, y'all are benefiting off of the fact that these people have nowhere else to go. And it's that better than nothing care. And so I quit. So God told me after I got my degree, he told me I was coming off of that job. And so now working with other healthcare professionals, other nurses, and really professionals in general to build the healthcare system the way that it should be delivered. Yeah. Like you can have both. Like you can give good care and make good money, but people get greedy and there are people that are suffering. And now you're benefiting off of their suffering. I can't work here. You want to argue. Like I cannot work here. I cannot even look you in the face. It was triggering to see this woman. Yeah, I bet. Like, ma'am, don't come to me talking. Yes, like, ma'am, do not come to me talking about how much y'all care for this community. No, you don't. Yeah. Because y'all wanted to organize a walk for George Floyd. No, take them coins.
She wasn't black, was she?
No. Take them coins and let's make it do what it does. Put your money where your mouth is. Mm-hmm. Pay my medical assistant. One of the medical assistants ended up getting COVID because she was working at a urgent care center after work, and they weren't requiring her to wear an N95, just a surgical mask. But why is somebody who's working 40 hours a week here having to go somewhere else to work again? Yeah. And you are making $567,000 a year. Make it make sense to me. Yeah. And so because nobody
literally go down to $550.
Yeah, something
and benefit her situation.
Yes.
Like, man.
People like the more and more I talk to people, people were sleeping in their car. Like I'm like, y'all is trash. And I had this like righteous indignation of like, God, you see this? Yeah. And so he pulled me off of that job a couple months ago to go out. Like now I understand that this is what needs to shift. People don't know about the nonprofit industry. Yeah. Like people just think like, oh, it's like charity. No, it's a business. Yeah. Only thing that's different is the tax shelter. Yeah. So that's why these hospitals, and you can look up your local hospital organization. If it's a 501, just look up their 990. These CEOs are making $2 million, $3 million, $4 million a year. And then you have people who are going bankrupt trying to pay their hospital bills. Mm-hmm. It's not okay with me. And so my goal is to really empower people who want to change the way that our communities look, because I really feel like nonprofits are the way that we build personal and community wealth. Mm-hmm. I can employ my family and, it's a way for us to build wealth within our family, but then in our community, we can really change the way that things are done. Yeah. What if I start a nonprofit organization where I'm helping kids as a trainer, I'm helping kids and we're defeating childhood obesity, because it's always us. All the disparities is us. Yeah. High blood pressure, diabetes, all of that is always us. And that's why COVID hit us so bad, because the risk factors for death, we were already disproportionately impacted by. Yeah. So if you're more likely to die with diabetes, that's us. Yeah. If you're more likely to die with asthma, that's us. If you're more likely to die with hypertension, that's us. And a lot of these things are what I call modifiable risk factors. So there are some things you can't change, but if you go out to the hood, you're going to see Popeyes and churches. You will not see a grocery store.
McDonald's.
Yes.
Ain't no
they're food deserts.
Foods out
exactly.
There. Yeah.
But if you start a community garden and you're getting funding and you're impacting childhood obesity and different health efforts, we are changing the way our community looks. Mm-hmm. Like the enemy is so... He think he's slick. Like he's so strategic that he will he positions the liquor stores and things like that within our communities.
Yeah.
And so now we alcoholics and we drunk and we belligerent, and there's even no opportunity, right? These kids need mentoring programs. My girls are so happy that they have a place, and I ended up finding out about a program. It's called WIA. It's a national program, the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act. It's a national program for kids 16 to 24 that meet certain criteria, basically poverty, where they will pay for their school, they'll pay for their jobs and all of that. So I'm talking in clinic, talking to the girls like, why didn't you sign up for the WIA program?
They're like, what is that?
What is that?
Yeah.
How are you in foster care though? Your caseworker ain't said nothing to you about this? Nah.
And the caseworker probably isn't getting paid enough.
They're overwhelmed.
Has so many different cases. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And at the end of the day, it's minorities, not even just blacks. Like it's Black, Latinas, it's the minorities we're suffering. Yeah. And these people, because it's the nonprofit sector is overran by Caucasian. It's people that don't look like us. Mm-hmm. Like I think it's like 9% is the statistic of like Black owned organizations that are really doing like, impacting the community. Mm-hmm. That's not okay, because we're the ones that need all the help.
Yeah.
And so these people are building wealth off of our suffering, and it just hit different once I knew that this woman was making this much money. Yeah. Not that she's getting paid. She's a CEO. It's a lot of work. Right. But the fact that you're
getting paid that much while the people are suffering.
Yes.
That's the problem.
And by the people, it's the people that we serve and your staff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it was nauseating. I was like, I got to get out of here, God, because I'm going to set it off. I'm going to set it off up in here. And so that's my TED Talk, y'all.
Like, so what are the nonprofits who are really doing good in the world?
So
what are they missing to where these organizations who are not handling our communities with care are able to get such funding? And we aren't. The ones who care aren't.
Because it's a lack of knowledge, and that's why people are perishing. It's because they're doing good things, but they don't have programs. In nonprofits, measurements is money. So let's say I'm feeding the homeless. You're doing good, and you're getting these smaller grants. But if you want to go and talk to the Office of Minority Health, they want to know how what you're doing is impacting their statistics on the mental health. Right. Like it's you have to position yourself to where the programs that we have are really impacting the measurements that they care about, so we can get the bigger funding. You can continue to feed the homeless, but then you take that and you say, you know what? On top of us feeding the homeless, we actually have a hub where they can come in and get healthcare.
Yeah.
And now we're solving the issue of access to healthcare, which the government cares about. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we don't think big enough and we don't look deep enough. And sometimes without a healthcare background, you won't even know to look deeper. So I have a client of mine. Her focus is pregnancy and infant loss. She's a Black woman. Y'all know that we're way more likely to die, like 250% times more likely from Black moms to die. The infant mortality rate for Black babies is always quadruple what it is for everyone else. Yeah. And so I'm working with her, and she was providing support to the moms. And I said, okay. And she was stuck. She was like, we're doing good work, but I'm not getting grants. And I said, it's because we have to shift. Mm-hmm. And so now what you're doing is you're supporting and serving the mission of pregnancy and infant loss through us no longer through trying to close those risk factors that are modifiable. Mm-hmm. So now she's doing a program for moms who are at risk, because Black, minority, alcohol. Like we're creating a program where she's decreasing the risk factors for them to have premature births. Yeah. So now we're still serving the same mission, but it's really different because we're able to do it in a way that they'll acknowledge. Mm-hmm. I'm like, girl, still host your support groups. Support groups are necessary, but to really do the work that really is required, we have to position ourselves to tackle these issues that they really care about. So you can go to somewhere like every 10 years, the government puts out an initiative. It's called Healthy People. So Healthy People 2020, and now because we're in 2021, Healthy People 2030 is out. And you'll be able to see Infant mortality is right at the top. And so they're looking for people who are addressing this. And so sometimes it's just a matter of us, we're already doing the work, but you don't know that you're doing it, and you don't know how to articulate that.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to keep measurements of that. So that way when you go and put in your grant application, it gets accepted. So our program, we do mentoring and life coaching and all of that for our young ladies. But what we really tackle is the teen pregnancy rate. So these are the things that we highlight, the teen pregnancy rates. A part of our program is for them to go through a sexual education course. We're impacting career readiness. We have a partnership with our local jobs place where you go file unemployment. Those are people that help. They do the WIA program. We're just in partnership with them, and we just send women to them. But now we're doing all of these things that are measurable and that are going to help change the trajectory, not only of their life, but the overall health status. And that's how you're able to get those funds.
I'm glad that you brought that up. It made me think about when I was doing my youth program, where I was so passionate about the work. And I remember going to, I don't know who I was talking to, and I was like, well, what do you base who you write the checks to for? Because I'm very straightforward. So I was like, what do you base who you write the checks to for? Because I'm sharing with them all of the feel good stuff, and something wasn't clicking.
Yep.
So I said, what gets the check rating? And they told me things like attendance rates. How is your program impacting the girls coming to school?
Yep.
What does the data say? So I said, okay, cool. And then every time I did the program after that, we started implementing certain data points so that we can have measurable results to then take to the schools and things. We weren't applying for grants, but as I was going to the different schools, I was able to talk to them in the language that they care about. And that made it a whole lot easier to keep getting into schools. And it sounds to me, based off your what you're saying, that most people start nonprofits because they have some type of emotional attachment to the cause, right? But where we have to go is we have to understand the business of nonprofit.
Yes.
So how does someone understand the business of nonprofit? How do they take themselves out of the emotional connection they have to the cause in order to build it strategically so they can get money? And I feel like a part of it too is maybe they feel like they're less committed to the cause if they focus on the business. Because if I'm so focused on this, then how am I really? I think it's more of a mental
There's
thing.
A conflict.
A conflict.
You have to pull yourself out of your emotional attachment, and the way that you do that is through research. And that's the number one. And now as a medical professional, that's what I always do that first. I got to assess the situation. But as people, it's like, oh man, I saw that homeless man and now I want to go feed all of them. But is that what they need? So a lot of times we have these initiatives in a way that we want to service people. And a lot of times we can encompass that into what we're doing, but we need to solve a problem, like a problem versus me just saying, I talk to these girls. What problem are we solving though? And how do you measure that? And so a really good way to do that, if you, I always tell people to pull the community needs assessment for what's going on in their community. If you are going out and feeding the homeless, and so is all of the other organizations, it's not a need. So maybe you want to help the homeless. They don't need to be fed, but they need someone to give them a way to have access to mental health care. You're still impacting and caring for this population, but in a way that there's another need that needs to be met. So a lot of times we'll kind of copy a lot of what other organizations are doing, and that's not even a need anymore. It's being fulfilled. And so being strategic and being committed to the community and not our cause, right? Like, so I have 3 sisters, and so for God to tell me to start an organization with a bunch of women is hysterical, because I'm like, I got enough of this. It's enough. Like, I'm not really into that like that. But you have to, so every county puts out what's called community needs assessment. Find your people, find your target audience, who you're serving. Why are you serving them? What problem are you looking to solve? And a lot of times we may see it's almost like an iceberg. Like, you see the top. Like, I saw these girls not getting access to resource. And the more that I looked, I was like, yo, young women in foster care, these teenagers are aging out of foster care. And so there's a lot of youth support for them. So ages like 13 to 18, but after 18, they out here on the streets.
Yeah.
And they're whole adults now, according like legally. And so that shifted us, our age group. We serve ages 14 to 24 because at 17, I did not. I don't know about you, but I was dumb still. Right? And so we're expecting them to behave in a standard that nobody's ever shown them.
Yeah.
We're expecting them to, how you expect them to not be ratchet? That's all they know. All they know is city girls. Like, who's going to show them different? And then after 18, we just kind of kick them out on the street. Yeah, they're going to get pregnant. So really being able to provide that support, the issue, like, yes, young women needed help, but I had to get very specific on who I was helping and why. There's always a missing piece. There's always something like, oh, what about these girls? They just age out and like, that's it? And then there's resources that they don't know about. Nobody checking in on them. They don't have community. Most teenagers that go into foster care are not getting adopted. People want babies and little kids. And so there's this whole spectrum of kids. They're still kids. We try to adult teenagers all the time, and they're kids still. And so they're still kids that aren't being cared for. And so yes, it's great that you want to go out and play with all the kids in foster care, but these teenagers really need help.
Yeah.
And so it's not being, you can't be tied to a method. It's like, okay, are we going to impact this community of people? If so, what y'all need me to do? And how can I do that? And that's why you have to really be committed to the cause of these young women. The cause are, even Bree, my medical assistant, texted me the other day. I haven't talked to her in probably a couple months now. And she was within that age group. And she just said, I have 8 more classes until I finish my associate's degree. And I just wanted to tell you that I love you and I miss you. And like, thank you so much because you really played a big role in this. And I just was like, oh, God. Those moments. Because she was a statistic. She got pregnant as a teenager. She was working as a medical assistant, but cutting up. And I'm like, Bree, you can't, here's the rule. You can't stay here like this. We're going to do the next thing. Your life is not in here. There's so much more. And so even in that, me being able to serve and service her being able to come out and be a part of different things that we did with the nonprofit, and her just really seeing, it took for her to see quote unquote Black excellence, for her to understand that it was available to her. Because I'm not that much older than you. Them girls, I would walk into the office, you my godson? Yes, sis. Yep. Lace front and all. Any more questions? And so even that exposure. And so it really is doing the research. So you can Google your county name and like community needs assessment, and they do all of the work. Like they'll show you you'll see the deficits in the charts. And then you can say, okay, we want to service this group of people. You may still be able to do a lot of what you're doing, but now you know what other services may be needed. So yes, we still have a mentoring program, but now we know that we need to have within our curriculum, sex and health education. That has to be a part of it because these girls are getting pregnant. We have to have in here information about human trafficking. These girls are 3 times more likely to get trafficked. And so, yes, we still have mentorship. We still get to go out and do fun things. We did the back to school bash in August where we're able to go out and give out school supplies. So those things are still necessary. But there's a difference between a service and an event. Like a program and an event. A program is like they come in and they're a part of this system. There's a curriculum and we're measuring pre-scores and post-scores and attendance, and we're gathering information to ensure that this works. A program can be evaluated. A service is a service. So yes, y'all can all go out and go feed the homeless. We do that. Every Christmas Eve, we find a smaller shelter that may not get a lot of big, a lot of the attention of the United Way and all these other places. We find a locally owned like grassroots organization, and we will make sandwiches or whatever we can do to go feed the homeless. So it's not that we don't do those things.
But it's a distinct difference.
Yes, but there's a difference between an event that you host versus a program and a service that you have.
And then that program gets the most money.
Yes.
Got it. So I hope y'all got all of that. Okay, that was like a full the business of nonprofit masterclass. Like my wheels are turning. And speaking of masterclasses, you have a class that we are offering within our Save and Strategic bundles. I believe just like how we talked about with nonprofits, we love the cause, but we don't have the strategy behind it. The same thing, a lot of people in business who are believers, we can pray heaven down, but cannot read a profit and loss statement to save our life. So it's important to be both saved and strategic. And so the course that you're contributing to the bundle is all about socialpreneurship. So the business of nonprofits. Can you talk to them a little bit about what to expect from your course?
Yes. So when I started my organization, and this is, again, I love being able to teach because it's like, girl, you ain't even gonna have to deal with the struggles I dealt with. So the big thing with nonprofits is 501c3. Like everybody needs that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So I paid $1,800 to this lady.
How much?
$1,800 for this lady to file, like to help. It was gonna be 6 calls and this and that, and all this is that and the third. And by the time it was all said and done, I had my 501c3 status, still had no clue as to what I was doing. The calls, I told her I wanted my program to be free to the girls, and she was like, oh, that's not going to be sustainable. And I was like, well, that's what God told me to do.
Yeah.
So there's that. And so what ended up happening is there's a organization called SCORE where you can get like a business mentor. I was like, I need a mentor, clearly. God connected me with my mentor. She's an attorney for nonprofit organizations, a Black attorney, a woman who loves the Lord. I said, you know what, God, you be. But she looked at my stuff and was like, girl, you don't even have all the things that you need to solicit donations for the state of Florida.
Wow.
And I was like,
you pay $1,800 for what?
For her to file paperwork that I now know that I can file in a matter of 10 minutes.
That's why people kill me when they be paying people to get them an LLC. If you don't go to the freaking business department of your state and sit down somewhere,
girl, find the division of corporations and get your life. And so because I was annoyed, but then also I looked at the contract again and she gave me exactly what she said.
But you didn't know what you needed.
But I didn't know what I needed.
Yeah.
And so the Socialpreneur Blueprint course goes through every aspect of building an organization that's going to be sustainable. The things that I wish I would have considered, because everything isn't a nonprofit organization. You may find that this is not the work for you. You may find that you just need to go volunteer somewhere to serve with someone else. So
or do your coat drives every winter or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's okay too.
Yes, yep. So it really is a matter of educating everyone on the steps. And so it's a blueprint because it's like building a house. And so we start at the foundation, which is research. I give all the templates, like everything I wish I would have had. I gave. And so it's all the templates, and we go step by step, talking about your target population, talking about really coming up with a plan that's going to be measurable and that you can evaluate. And so I'm excited. I'm excited. If you ever thought you had wanted to, you need to get the bundle, child.
Yeah, and even if you're not sure if you want to, the Bible tells us to count the cost. And a part of that is you really need to know what you're getting yourself into
I had no clue.
Before you do it. Because that could have saved you $1,800.
$1,800 whole dollars.
It could save someone else just the time and maybe spending that money and some more to get started on something they realize they just don't want to do.
Yes.
And so I love your course because it does just present this is what it takes.
Yes.
And if you want to take it and do something with it, you have everything you need. And if you decide this isn't the work for you, now you are able to spend way less money and make an educated decision on how to move forward.
Yep. And then now you're knowledgeable. Yeah. Right? Because a lot of times, especially when you think about the way our communities work, like everybody grandmama really had their own kind of like mission set up that we were feeding people and doing all of these things. There may be something, one of the young ladies that I work with, her family has a farm.
Oh, wow.
And in North Carolina, and she was talking about how they I was asking her what prayer she needed, and she was like, yeah, my family's farm. And she's a part of, a group that I do for my podcast. And we were talking, and I was like, girl, y'all need to have is it a nonprofit? And so now I'm talking to her. I'm like, girl, yeah, because then you're helping like food shortages and the food desert thing and obesity. Like, and so she just looked at me and was like, girl, like they were struggling financially and she had no idea that this was even an option for them, because nonprofit don't mean no profit. And that's what I'm like, it's the only thing that's different is the taxes and the funding and what you have to do. They should have, because it's not that it's not profit. It means that the money that you get can't go to shareholders. It has to go back into the organization and to the people that you serve. But it doesn't mean that everybody's broke. Look at your hospital CEOs. They is balling.
That still blows my mind.
They are balling. Google, I guarantee you, if you Google your local, very few hospitals are privately owned. If you Google most major hospital systems, you will find out that they are a 501c3 organization. Walmart has the Walmart Foundation. It is a 501c3. They write checks. Like almost every big corporation has a nonprofit. The American Heart Association is a nonprofit, the Red Cross. And if you Google and look up their funding, I guarantee you their CEOs are making more money than we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And so it really is the matter of just having the knowledge, even if you decide not to, knowing that when you give your money to an organization, really going after and looking at finding grassroots organizations, even if you decide not to start your own, but to go and serve.
Yeah.
And now you can take this knowledge and go help another organization within your community that's doing the right work and serving the right people. And so even if you decide not to do it yourself, girl, go sit on a board somewhere. This information is going to help you think differently to where you may even be able to go into another organization and serve in such a way that you create a new career for yourself. Never in my life would I thought I would be doing nonprofit. I was like, God, the way that this has all worked, and I still get to use my education. I was like, oh God, that's why I had to go get my doctorate, because I had to learn how to do research. Yeah. He's like, no, you need to learn how to do the numbers and crunch, and like, you have to learn how to do this stuff, and you're going to do it here. And then for me to be able to literally launch a program from start to finish on their dime, it allowed me to go back to my organization and say, this is why this ain't working. We did a whole revamp after that. This is why this isn't working. Because at first I was like, I'm going to mentor these girls. And now like, oh no, we need a program with the curriculum and this and like that, and be able to measure. This is what they're looking for. And so I got OJT literally on the job with doing this breastfeeding program. And I got to see the way that multi-million-dollar corporations who are nonprofits do stuff. It ain't all right. But if we can get believers in this sector who are really serving these people and really integritous, like, we can change the game. And to me, that's what it's about.
That's good. That's good. Well, before we wrap up, tell everybody about More Than Just a Nurse.
Yes. So More Than Just a Nurse, Inc. is a nonprofit consulting company. So I help organizations look, if you already have a nonprofit and you're not happy with the way that it's going, we really sit down and look, and we have a socialpreneur blueprint program where we go through and we really revamp your organization. If you're a new nonprofit organization, then we'll help you kind of start to finish. And the goal of the program is for you to have a sustainable program with your 501, so like you a 501c3 certified child, and be ready to file for federal grant applications. So that's a whole nother, like, had to figure that out too. I was just out here writing grants, and I was like, oh, take these notes, trying it. It's really, now that God has given me the system, me helping other organizations that want to get started. So I'm really, I love doing it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love that I can still use my healthcare training and still have the opportunity to serve in a way that changes healthcare overall, and the health statuses of people. It's just the way God be putting stuff together. I'm like, this is why you the Lord. You was God for this reason. You be knowing. So yes, so the website is www.morethanjustinnurseinc.com, and you'll find our application there. And yeah, y'all, we out here.
I'm so excited about everything that you have going on. I'm excited about, like, I could just see the organizations that are going to be created on solid ground.
Yes.
Because of the information that you're providing. So I am so excited for what you're doing.
It's going to be lit.
you guys go to, again, morethanjustanurse.com to learn more about Sharla's programs. Where can they find you on social media and all that?
Oh, right now, child, we fasting, child. Okay, shout out to the society. We ain't even on the socials right now. No, so you can find me. You can follow me at the PDNP. So THEPEDI. N is in Nancy, P is in Paul. Because I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner.
We got to change that to Sharla Walker.
I know people be like, petty? What?
Girl, when I first got your email, I said the petty. What?
I was
right there too. I was like, all right, well, maybe she do.
Y'all know what? By the time this episode come out, it's gonna be Sharla Walker.
Yeah, let's just change that to Sharla Walker.
Instagram.
And you can put the petty in the bio.
I thought it was cute when I first did
the petty, no fit.
People be really confused. I knew I needed to change it because there was this nurse. There's this nurse that I was like, she was doing an Instagram live and I commented and she stumbled. I was like, you too?
Your people ain't getting
Girl, my people. I said, oh man, we gotta change it. And I had changed it and then changed it back. So I'm gonna change
we gonna change it.
It'll be Dr. Sharla Walker.
There we go.
By the time that this live comes all the way. Find me on Instagram with Dr. Sharla Walker. Seriously.
Well, I just hope it's not taken.
Yeah,
that's gonna be bad.
I don't think so. Okay. Yeah, if it's taken, the PDNP stays.
Whatever it is, we're gonna know by the time this part comes out. And
yeah.
We are gonna put it in
the show notes.
And then the Saved and Strategic bundle is going to be available for Black Friday. So you guys just make sure you continue to follow the podcast and follow Blessed and Bossed Up on IG. And I'll actually put something in the show notes so that you can get notified when it's available, because it's only going to be available for Black Friday.
It's going to be lit.
Because that's it.
The value.
Yeah.
Like,
the and it's value going to be under $100.
Child.
4 courses or so.
Yes.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that.
The value.
So you guys will get all of that. So stay tuned. And that's it. Thank you for listening and watching, if you're on YouTube, to another episode of the Blessed and Bossed Up podcast. Sharla, thank you again.
Shout out to all the nurses, student nurses. Keep going.
Yes, keep going.
Keep going, y'all.
Because I ain't gonna never forget Miss Gladys.
Miss Gladys.
I should have sent something, but
she sound like an old black auntie that you need. Like Miss Gladys was probably everybody's work mom.
She had them arms that you have when they can cook real good.
Yes, they veins be poking out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I said thank y'all for watching. That is funny.